Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to be talking about Ishvara Pranidhana. This is another one of the niyamas in yoga. It's the spiritual observances that we take on. And to explain this one and to kind of go over it, I'm going to be really talking about my own journey, as this one is extremely personal. This is really, each individual is going to see their own way of seeing this. So first, I'll define it in the best way that I can, and then we'll move forward and talk a little bit about my personal story. So Ishvara Pranidhana is, Ishvara, first of all. Ishvara is, in the Yoga Sutras, it says Ishvara is a supreme Purusha, unaffected by afflictions, karmas, or desires. And also defined by Reverend Jagannath Carrera, the material and efficient cause of the world. So this is that cosmic divine energy. Many people call it God. It's called God in many different traditions. Sometimes in the more New Age, spiritual but not religious type of world, sometimes we get almost triggered by the word God. So we kind of come up with other names for it: cosmic divine love, divine energy. And I guess that's the main other words I can think of right now. But yeah, that cause of the world, that's what Ishvara defines, or is defined as. It's kind of like the controller of the world, like what the world is kind of made of. Another thing that comes to mind is something Bashar has said through his channel. He said something along the lines of, everything is made of God because there is nothing else for anything to be made of. So it's pretty much everything that is, that we can see, that we can experience. That is what Ishvara is representative of. And Ishvara is also, it manifests as the cosmic syllable Om, which is AUM. I'll probably make a longer video about this, because if you practice on my channel, you notice I chant Om at the end of every practice. There was a commentary I was reading on Mandukya Upanishad by Swami Krishnananda, and it said, Ishvara cannot be described or named except by a universal language which can't exist. The only language conceivable is Om. So it doesn't really help it make sense, in that it's really not meant to make sense, in my opinion, or in my experience in learning so far. It seems like you can't really make sense of this cosmic energy. And if you think you do, then you've probably got it off or a little bit wrong, or you have achieved the full goal of yoga and you are God realized. Other little thing I love to hear is, we are all little pieces of God, kind of like the Bashar quote I was saying. Yes, we are little pieces of God, and we're just covered up in all this sensory stuff, and we're always longing and experiencing the other obstacles and overcoming the ego and it's all kind of traps us here somehow. We get trapped in the cycle of birth and death and rebirth. Pranidhana is that act of surrender. It's the act of putting something in front of you, like more important than yourself. In Buddhism, pranidhana is a vow, and it's the bodhisattva's vow of helping all beings attain liberation. So it's like that dedication to what is greater than you, right? All of humanity is greater than me. I'm just one of them. So that's this surrender is about. Surrender to something that you know is just greater than what you are, or even what you can see or understand. Ishvara Pranidhana is another key component in Kriya Yoga, which I have talked about before in my videos on tapas and svadhyaya. This is the third component of that type of yoga, which will help you overcome certain obstacles, which I'll be going over in my next video. Yes, more obstacles, but we have tools to overcome them, right? So we have tapas, svadhyaya, and now Ishvara Pranidhana. If you remember in my video on svadhyaya, the study and the study of the self will help you kind of align yourself to that higher power, to what your chosen deity is, or what you want to experience that as. Of course, there are many different ways to see this. Um, Ishvara, sometimes the word God is triggering, so we'll see it as energy, or sometimes a certain God that is depicted, we don't like the way they're depicted, or we don't like what is going on with that. That's not the only one. It's just not. There are so many different ways to describe it. When I say that's not the only one, I mean that's not the only way to describe it. What I see is many different people from many different parts of the world describing something in the best way that they can, with what they have, with what they've experienced, with what they've read in their culture. Because what we're talking about, it's, I mean, I already said it's not definable, it's not nameable. There's no language that can put it really into words, except what they had in ancient times. They resonated it as Om. That is the sound of creation. So to kind of follow that up, I'll just kind of go in briefly on my own experience with this. Um, I was raised Christian. My dad's a pastor, so I was raised reading the Bible, learning about the Bible. At some point, I just kind of started to lose faith. I started disregarding it. I somehow saw what they were defining as God as some guy living in the clouds looking down at us and like judging everybody. So I didn't like that. I decided that I was no longer interested in having faith. It didn't serve me, I felt. So I went off and I was doing my own little things, pleasing the senses. Being attached and addicted to the worldly stuff, and somehow it got turned around, right? I turned myself around really kind of when I started practicing yoga. It was around that time I was trying to learn how to really express myself and um, learn more about me. And when I first started learning yoga, I didn't learn any about this stuff. I didn't understand this stuff yet. Um, really until I did my teacher training. some of it, but it was really working its magic in me. Like even the movements, I thought I was doing it just to gain flexibility, but really when you're practicing your asana movements, you're clearing the energy channels in your body, whether you notice it or not. Of course, bringing your conscious awareness to that shift and to the moving prana in your body is going to intensify that, because you're bringing your awareness is there instead of your awareness is in the future, like, oh man, I can't wait until I can do the splits or something like that. So where am I going with this? Right. So I was practicing yoga, getting really into that. When the pandemic hit is when I really was gung ho. I was like practicing yoga every day, um, and really diving in. I found like mystery schools online. I was taking online classes about spirituality, and just learning more about the self and about how it all is kind of connected and, well, really connected. How I was learning about chakras and about astrology. Um, and slowly over time, it took a while for me to really get comfortable with the word God, because I still was calling myself spiritual but not religious. I didn't want to associate it with the belief in God for some reason. Um, it didn't make me feel comfortable. I was like, I don't know if I believe in God. I think I gave that up. And eventually it just kind of came back to me. And then I started discovering a bit more about Hinduism, because it comes out of the same place that yoga does. And it's very interesting to look at. And sometimes I feel like I don't know a lot about Hinduism because I don't. And I feel like it's meant to be that way. To me, I feel like it's meant to be confusing. It's meant to be like you don't know everything, because you won't, because you can't. Um, and to my feeling and understanding, I think they have so many different divine personalities, because you're not meant to know everything. But if you find one that you resonate with, then you can kind of dedicate yourself to that. So I found a goddess that I really enjoyed dedicating my time to and chanting. That this is a practice called Bhakti Yoga, which is just the yoga of devotion. It's laid out in the Bhagavad Gita. There's one chapter in the Bhagavad Gita where Sri Krishna is talking about Bhakti Yoga and about how kind of the difference between celebrating God or surrendering yourself to what is unknowable or what is like undefined versus a defined form. And it's just easier to worship or to celebrate, whatever word you want to use. I know worship can be another triggering word, or to surrender to, let's say surrender to practice that Ishvara Pranidhana to something that you can see and kind of like know something about. It's a little bit easier to kind of, in this human form, really dedicate yourself to that. So you can say, I'm dedicating myself to this particular goddess, which is an embodiment of, Lakshmi, Durga, and Saraswati combined. Finding what this is for you is where your svadhyaya is important, right? You're studying yourself, you're studying scriptures, um, and finding what lights you up when it comes to this type of stuff. You don't want to think, oh, well, I better do it this way because this is the way that I was told to my whole life. And I don't think I know anything. That's the hard part about it, I think. I don't think I know anything. I think I'm just surrendering to what is, to what I can figure out. To the magic of it all. And by surrendering, you can really start to kind of bring this out. Because we're all little pieces of God. We're all little pieces of God. So just believe that, like, have faith. That's what the faith is. So what the niyamas and the yamas are involved in in the Yoga Sutras is typically called the 8 limbs of yoga, but in James Mollison's book, The Roots of Yoga, he defines it as the auxiliaries of yoga. So this is things that help you attain yoga or can be of assistance to you rather than something that is mandatory or that you must do right now. Especially if you're watching this and maybe you're having a similar experience to what I had, where you're kind of confused or like uncertain, or you don't feel like you have that faith yet. Just keep studying and see if you can find that. Don't Sometimes when I was younger, I was taught the idea of blind faith. I don't agree. Faith should not be blind. You should find something that you can at least see with your higher mind, if that makes sense. Um, and I believe in this times, things like this are going to make more sense. That's kind of why I'm just sharing it on YouTube. I'm not too concerned about, oh, maybe I should keep this more hidden knowledge or something like that. I don't believe that either. I think we're moving forward. I think yoga is moving forward. I don't think you have to wait until you do a teacher training to learn about the Yoga Sutras. Hopefully, this video has helped you a little bit in some way, or a lot, maybe. Um, if you have any questions or if you would like to discuss it further, please comment below. I'll probably make another video like this in the future. This is a kind of a shifty subject, right? I might see it one way now, but maybe a year from now I'll go back and watch this video and uh, have a different point of view on it and be like, oh, that kind of shifted a little bit. I mean, some of it's been very similar for quite some time now, but it's constantly changing. Um, Again, Ishvara is not definable. I can't put this video down and say I have defined Ishvara Pranidhana because that is not possible. So hopefully this helps. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Again, I'm going to be talking about what Kriya Yoga does to help us overcome some more obstacles on this path, starting with ignorance. So I will see you then. Namaste.